Thanks for tuning in today. Have you ever hesitated to help your child with something they're struggling with because you thought to yourself, if I help him every time, he'll never learn to do it himself? It's a common question and a tricky one. So let's dig in today to how we can learn to figure out the delicate balance between support and independence. Before we dive in, if you're new here, I hope you'll consider subscribing, and if you like the content, that you press the like button. All right, so picture this. Your child is trying to put on their jacket, they're struggling with the zipper and fumbling, and they're getting increasingly frustrated. And you're worried a meltdown might be coming, but you're also thinking, if I do this, he's never going to learn. And while that sentiment comes from a place of wanting to teach independence, and that's really important, it also can miss the mark. So today, we're going to talk about where that line is, that line between supporting and over-supporting. And we're going to talk about why setting your child up for success is not holding them back. Here's why I think the mindset of, if I help him, he'll never learn, can be problematic. It assumes that independence only happens when kids are left to figure out things alone. It's a very all or nothing kind of mindset versus a, how can I support bit by bit as they grow their skills bit by bit. So let's dig into that further. When we step back and don't support them and let them sink or swim, children can become overly frustrated, overwhelmed, they can lose confidence, and they can struggle unnecessarily. That raises the important question of, do we need to make mistakes to learn? And the answer is yes, of course. If we don't ever make mistakes, then we're not challenging ourselves or our children outside of our comfort zones, right? We need to learn how to make mistakes, how to accept mistakes. It's an important skill in life, and it's also how we figure out what works and what doesn't work. But not all mistakes are created equal. They're not all equally valuable. Some mistakes are productive. They teach us resilience, they teach us new skills, but others, especially the ones that are repeated failures with no guidance, they can actually discourage us and kids, of course, from trying at all. They're just simply demoralizing. So let's use as an example, say your child is trying to learn how to pour milk or juice from a carton. If you give them a full carton, a small child, the likelihood of them spilling is pretty great. But if you guide them, maybe holding the carton together at first, starting with a smaller or lighter container, they're much more likely to feel successful and confident. Over time, they'll build the skills and the strength to be able to successfully pour a cup of milk or juice on their own. This process turns what could have been a defeating moment into a positive learning experience. Homework is another great example. We don't want to do it for them. It doesn't help them in any way, and we've already completed 6th grade, so it doesn't help anyone. But if we let them sit and struggle, it could make them feel defeated, inadequate. It could make them feel like they'll never get it. It could make them feel like they can't do homework, right? It can really backfire, letting them sit in the process of making mistakes over and over and not getting it. In that moment, we need to balance that support and independence. That's what we're talking about. It's not about avoiding mistakes altogether. It is about creating an environment where your child feels supported enough to try and keep trying until they succeed. When in doubt, I believe it's best to err on the side of success. Why? Because success builds confidence. Every time your child succeeds at something, even with help, they're learning that they can succeed, and it's a powerful motivator. Let's say, for example, you're trying to teach your child to make their bed. Instead of expecting them to tuck in everything perfectly, if they're trying to do that and they're not succeeding, they might get terribly frustrated and think, I'll never do this. They are black and white thinkers. They are all in nothing or nothing thinkers. So think about that, right? Instead, if you show them how to pull up the blanket and smooth that out first, you're still doing a lot of the work, but you've set them up to feel proud of the result. Then over time, they can take over doing more and more of the bed making until they can do it themselves successfully and feel good about it. Another example for an older child might be writing an essay. I have firsthand experience of this with my neurotypical daughter. Sometimes it was very hard for her. There were tears, there were long nights, and I sat there with her, and sometimes what she needed was for me to keep saying, you can do this, I know you can do it, keep going. Other times she really did need me to step in and say, well, you should put this idea before that idea, and this is why that makes sense. Did I overhelp her sometimes? Maybe. But over time, I was able to back down the support and she could do it herself. But in those moments when I might have offered a little too much support, I was helping her build her confidence. So the moments of support don't mean they'll never learn to do it on their own. They mean they're learning at a pace that builds their confidence instead of breaking it down. So to sum it up, here are some practical tips for you to balance support and independence. First, think of it as a gradual release of responsibility, sort of like training wheels. Support them fully at first, and over time, as they increase their ability and their confidence, you can back down your support until they can ride on their own. Second, collaborative problem solving. Involve your child in the situation. What do you think would help? Right? It helps give them some ownership in it. It helps them perhaps identify the part of the exercise that's hard for them. Maybe it's different from what you think it is. Third, celebrate effort, not just success. We need our children to be good triers, to be willing to continue trying. So celebrating the effort helps keep them motivated to keep trying. And lastly, number 4 is model confidence. When you believe they can do it, when you are positive and supportive and confident, it helps them feel more confident that they also will be able to do it. Mistakes will happen naturally. There's no need to force them, and we don't need to leave space for extra mistakes. Confidence grows from success, and learning is a process, not a single moment. And that's why supporting your child thoughtfully isn't the same as over-supporting. It's not an all-or-nothing situation, so be careful of thinking about it that way. Your child doesn't need to figure out things alone and without support in order to learn. By setting them up for success in these situations, you're giving them the tools to face their challenges with confidence. I hope this was helpful for you. If it was, I hope you'll consider subscribing and pressing the like button. It really helps out the channel. It helps it reach other parents who also need to hear these messages. If you want me to address other topics, feel free to drop those in the comments. If you want to drop in the comments an experience you've had of trying to decide, should I help them or should I let them struggle? Please share those with me. I'm happy to engage in conversation with you there. I'll see you in the next one.